Hey, Guru Nation. So you asked for it. They asked Monica and Chris. Thank you guys both for joining. First, we got Monica. Hi, Monica.
Hi, Dan. Thank you
She's,
for having us again with
as you can
the
see now, she's got the University of Columbia Research logo behind her. Can you say it again? Show it again, Monica.
University of Clinical Research.
Beautiful. Hey,
Nicely.
you might recognize the DNA and RNA strand. And then we've got Chris Sauber, who people are gonna, I already get enough pushback on Twitter for there's this whole segment of people on Twitter that dislike, and this is not gonna be our podcast. Don't even start. But dislike private research, even though they're so it's way more good than bad from having private research. All you have to do is work at a university or AMC to figure that out. But Chris Sauber not helping me at all with his background with the Corvette.
Yeah, something to strive for.
Welcome,
We'll
Chris.
get it.
Well, you can go from here to that.
Yeah.
You can go from RNA to DNA. We're not getting into that podcast either,
No,
Monica.
from getting
You
well
don't want to talk
trained,
about vaccines?
start
What?
your career in research, and then go to get a Corvette.
Yeah, that's good. Okay, so I did this short video yesterday on entry level. The problem with having an advanced degree when you are entry level in research. So a lot of PhDs, reach out and say, "Hey, you know what? I have a PhD," but it's not a PhD in any hard science, because for those ones you can actually work in the lab. Like if you're PhD in chemistry or molecular biology, you can work at a sponsor. You can do bench research, you can publish papers, you could help them create their protocols, all that kind of stuff. But if you're trying to be a CRA and you have a PhD in something that's not necessarily a hard science, or even if it is, but it doesn't have a transferable um, context to clinical research, you have to start at the entry level like everyone else. But this video is gonna this longer form is gonna be more about entry level roles in research, how to obtain them, first of all what they are, where to find them, how to obtain them, and then obviously we're going to talk about the CRC Academy, which is enrolling soon, and the CRA Academy, which is enrolling soon. Both have been busy. So, let's start with what are some entry level roles in clinical research?
I think the number one will be patient recruitment.
Can you explain? Let's say, oh, we're listening right now, and somebody says, oh, that sounds really good, Monica. So where do I find somebody texted me, where do I find these links to these jobs? And
Okay,
how do they find
I
them?
don't think you actually find them. You have to find the opportunity. So, what I will suggest is, like Dan always keep on saying, go and check the clinics around your area and offer your service. You can actually be independent contractor. That could be your actually your own business. You can be starting as a volunteer, showing your potential. It will be also a plus if you have a language background, another language, like if you're bilingual, that you speak, let's say, Spanish and English, or I don't know, French and English, that you could also offer that variety, because now the industry is looking for diversity, right? I think it's a great way to start a career, and you will learn progressively all that involves being part of a team in research from the side perspective. If you like it, I mean, you can develop a huge career within the industry, because you can also do this with the sponsors, right?
And Monica's not just you're somebody who started as a patient recruiter.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Chris and I thought you were a spy, but you were actually a genuine patient recruiter.
Unless the spy part's still open for debate.
Yeah, I still think it's still true. She's a double agent, actually.
No,
You're not off the hook yet, but Good, good call, Chris.
No, no, I was never a spy.
It's an inside story, guys, but we had a business partner investor. But it was for a startup research site. So, okay, patient recruiter, Chris, do you agree
Oh,
with Monica?
absolutely, absolutely. I would say that's the ultimate probably starting point. That or data entry.
Okay, but now I'm going to ask you, Chris, because I know you do well with the tough questions. You just identified two: patient recruiter, data entry. Now I'm going to reflect back to what some comments on YouTube say. Well, I have a PhD, I have a master's in public health. Does that still apply for me?
Well, it's funny because last time you and I did a video, we had this kind of the same conversation in which I told you a doctor felt that a doctor could be a coordinator, no problem, right? But you still need some sort of training. Um, so yes, as far as a PhD, I mean, there's plenty of sites out there that Dan and I help with our consulting service in which these individuals become coordinators and have not the first clue about clinical research. They tend to make more mistakes. They tend to have more problems, though, when they step into this role with no experience. I think it's much preferred that this individual has some sort of experience, at least some education, right? Maybe not experience necessarily, but at least education.
Some training, yeah.
So you brought up a
I
good point because I think for this, and um, it actually confirms Monica's point. So if you are somebody with a master's degree, there's a lot of masters in clinical research too, and guess what? They don't really learn like the day-to-day stuff of how to be a
Mhm.
coordinator. But if you're someone with a master's degree or even better PhD, or you are an international medical graduate, you need to go do what Monica said. You need to go to the small sites in your area because those doctors, a lot of those sites, those small sites are doctor owned, physician owned. And those doctors, like you just heard from Chris, they prefer to talk to somebody with credentials, even if you don't have experience. So if you're a PhD and you go to a site and you get to see the doctor or you get to network until you get to talk to the doctor and say, hey, I just want to work here, just I'll be a patient recruiter. Eventually, like if you see value in me, you could hire me as a coordinator or a psychometric rater or some other kind of um, assessment where you require like a advanced degree. Those doctors are more likely to say yes to you because they consider you more of like an equal to them, right?
Absolutely. I would agree with that.
yeah, um, totally agree. We had in the past people that have the masters in clinical research, and we train them from zero because I mean they have this education is totally different to the practical education that we provide because it's more like book based kind of education than practical, right? We had in the past a coordinator that had this background, clinical research masters, and we have to train him from zero.
What about other entry
Mhm.
level? So patient recruiter, we have data entry, we have psychometric rater. So if you have a master's degree or higher, find psychiatric clinics in your area because they're always in need of a master's degree level or higher, especially if it's master's in science.
I was just going to say you can argue that the coordinator is entry level, but no, I know you're shaking your head, no, Monica, but um, you need some sort of formal education. Well, not necessarily formal, but you need some sort of education, right? Um, I mean, we've had students that have done well that have read our book, watched a few dance videos, and have done well as a coordinator. Or better yet, they take the CRC Academy. Um, and I tell this all the time to our clients when they ask, "Hey, can this MA be our coordinator?" Sure, it's going to potentially be problematic. However, if you put them through the CRC Academy, um, I believe that they'd be much better situated if they at least have the fundamentals down and the concepts to being a coordinator. So I think that still makes you an entry level position, though, even though you require some education, right? Uh, it's like 1B entry level, whereas patient recruitment's still going to require a little bit of education, less so. Same thing with data entry, it's still going to require a little bit of education, less so, to be able to perform those tasks as well. It's just a little more education is required, again, in my opinion, to be a coordinator.
Or an assistant, a clinical research coordinator
Yeah.
assistant,
Yeah,
also a
absolutely.
CTA. Another one that could be a possibility that, but you also need to get trained is a regulatory specialist at the site, like the person in charge of doing all the regulatory.
Yes, so that's is another good one, like ISF filing. I remember like first day of Katie, who's our new hire. Well, she's now in month 3. And by the way, once you have 3 months of experience, you are experienced as a coordinator. Like Katie and Desiree, they have 3 and 4 months experience respectively. I'm leaving them alone now for most visits. Like they're just on
But
their own.
but but keep in mind that they went through the CRC Academy.
Exactly.
I would
Exactly
So
right.
also I would also add, Dan, that they're still gonna run into problems potentially, um, but that's where they have you as a resource, right?
Yeah.
And I'm not trying to sell anything here, but in our CRC Academy, you also will have a resource in Monica for the long haul. So yes, you can do the job, but you still need that kind of backup plan if I run into something I don't know
mhm,
how to handle.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Because perfect example. Like we had a new amendment for a study, so I told Katie to do the training log for the new protocol, and she's only halfway done with the class, but she's never done one on her own. So she was looking at delegation log, like what I need to do, and I was like, no, no, you need the training log. And then she's like, oh, okay. And so then she understood, but it's understand by doing it too.
Yep.
That's just a little example, like daily examples like this. We have a lot of them. Um, So that all this is at the site level, which is good. The problem is a lot of these, and these are we're talking about small sites because if you're a PhD or a MS whatever masters, and you try to go to an AMC or a CRO, they're gonna peg you as overqualified many times. And somebody commented, actually, Elite Clinical Research commented. Shout out to Elite Clinical Research. He commented on YouTube as well. He's got a YouTube channel of his own. He actually commented on the video. He said a lot of times they will overlook at CROs and sponsors the advanced degrees because they know that as soon as you get some experience, you're going to leave. So there is, you kind of are in a tough spot if you have an advanced degree. You kind of have to almost start over, and you almost have no other choice but smaller sites. Not to say it's not possible, and you can go on Indeed and on LinkedIn, and you can go network. Everyone should go network with ACRP local chapter, SOCRA local chapter, and just network with people. Latinos in Clinical Research. It's open to all backgrounds. You just go to latinosinclinicalresearch.com. Every month we have a free Zoom meeting where you get to meet other people from the industries. Yes, people have already gotten jobs just by being in those meetings, by talking to other people. They've already gotten jobs. So that's just networking. It's possible, but probability is you have a better chance of outcomes going to a small site with those advanced degrees.
Maybe, I mean, another way, but I think for that one you will need a little bit more education. It will be to create the source documents.
Chris and I talked to a potential client, and the coordinator there wanted to have a side hustle of making source documents for other sites. Remember this call, Chris?
I most certainly do.
It was just a few days ago. But yeah, so it's a demand. It's in demand. Problem is, it's not that much in demand to be a standalone service. or a
But you
standalone
can
job.
gain experience that you can add to your CV.
Oh,
And
absolutely.
then, yeah. So let's say,
Absolutely.
for example, if you're creating the source documents for X and Y studies, then you can add those studies as your experience,
Hmm.
and that's helpful, right?
You have to
When you're looking
approach
for jobs.
when you're approaching, I don't care what degree you have, even if you don't have any. When you're approaching a small site, like all of us are site owners here, Monica, me, Chris, right? If you approach any one of us in the wild or anyone else
In the
out
wild.
there, yeah, out there in the wild, right? I'm out here in Yuma, Arizona. So if you approach any of us or anyone like us and you say, "Hey, I want to intern, I want to shadow you," or even worse, like pick your brain, we're probably going to say, "Nah, we have too much going on." But if you approach a site or one of us and say something like, there's four things really. I don't have experience in this industry, but I've watched videos, I've read a book, and I know sites need help getting patients. I know sites need help getting studies. I know sites need help getting clinicians. I know sites need help with various aspects of their operation. I have this background. This is what I can do for you for free. I'll do it for free for 3 months. If you think I'm worth keeping and gaining experience, I'll work as a research assistant, but in those 3 months of working for free, I will build my experience on my
I
resume.
will say yes
Yeah, most of
right
us would
away.
say yes.
Yeah.
So
And how about if you have phlebotomist, or if you know how to draw blocks, and and legally able to do it?
Anything. If you're a PhD, you can say, "Okay, look, let's say your master's in public health, okay? I have a master's in public health. We learn a lot about health outcomes of communities, all right? I know you have to reach out to community clinicians and you have to reach out to the community at large. I'm going to create posters for you with stats about your various therapeutic conditions you guys treat, and we're going to just you can use it for your social media, you can use it for your website. I'm going to do it for free. I just want some experience in return." Like at that point you're not just taking something, you're giving. And
it's
ultimately,
working both ways.
yeah. And I shouldn't say work for free. I should say you're volunteering.
So if you do that, it's a win-win situation, because you're gaining experience, and then the site is gaining
An asset.
somebody, and then exactly, an asset. And then on top of that, you maybe, if you show that you're good, for sure, more likely you're gonna end up being hiring in that site.
I would like to add an alternative, something you said there, Dan, because most people who are looking for a job can't work for free for 3 months.
Right.
I mean, certainly you can make that offer if you're capable of withstanding 3 months without pay. But most sites, including the three of us here, if you came in and said a month, and please just reevaluate, my potential at that point, or something to that effect, I think most sites would take you up on that as well.
Yeah, I would
Yeah.
say
And
volunteer.
mhm.
You're right. Don't work for free. Volunteer for free. But what you're doing, so look, like this Master of Public Health, you can take something that's abstract, like we learn about community health outcomes. Well, you could bring it down to a therapeutic area and you can just post on social media for that site. How does osteoarthritis impact Yuma, Arizona? Imagine having those infographics, you know, for our osteoarthritis study. Like that would be amazing. And you're gonna do this for free, and all we have to do is let you shadow us, like whenever you feel like coming in, and put on your resume, be my guest, and guess what? I'll hire you in a month. Well,
Yeah, and
exactly right, Chris.
I was gonna say that even if you're not able to work 3 months volunteering, you can still have your job, and then still volunteering some of your time doing anything that can be remote. And once in a while, you go to the site to learn different things, because that's the beauty of volunteering, that you can go to the site and shadow and learn a lot of
Sure.
things So, I mean, the opportunities are there. It's just for you to take a look and to be creative, even to create your own opportunities.
Yeah. Well, the problem is, and this is probably a criticism of higher education. People go into debt for these advanced degrees that are sometimes not practical. And they feel like, well, I already invested all this time and money into my degree. I can't be volunteering right now. Like, I volunteered enough in school writing my thesis or something like that, not knowing that within 2 years of getting even an entry level role, their career is going to skyrocket. Because if you're a coordinator with a PhD, and yes, you can be at many sites, small sites, within 2 years, you could be easily be CRA, and at 2 years of that, clinical trial manager, and then you could start doing things like some of the guests of this podcast do, like Robert, who was a study director. And you can do
Mhm.
all kinds of stuff. So your degree will pay off, but it's not going to pay off in the beginning. It's going to pay off at the end.
Yeah, it's helpful to advance
Yeah.
because you have that degree. Yeah. Hmm.
But I have empathy because, these things are not cheap, and
Yeah.
people go into debt to get them. But
Now that you mentioned that, I've been having this question many times. Um, I finished my bachelor's and I'm thinking to go and get a master's in something in whatever X training, right? I
Eckies, I
tell
like
the,
that.
yeah, sorry, I mix
Latinos
Spanish.
in clinical research.
So I always tell these people or these students or these professionals to first experience the industry, and once they are in the industry they will find out which higher education will meet their necessities. So let's say, for example, if you want to become a project manager of the whole study, you may, if that's what your aim, maybe you will want to go and have a master's in project management, and probably you don't even need it. But I will wait a little bit before deciding if I will do or not a master's.
We had to unpack this topic a little bit, and I think that we did cover some territory, but I don't know if it's advice everyone's going to want to hear. But if you have an advanced degree, that's just the way it is. If you don't have an advanced degree, guess what? You're almost on equal playing field with someone with an advanced degree, other than maybe the doc. In fact, sometimes even further ahead. Like if you just have a bachelor's and you apply, here's the thing: the bachelor's degree is the sweet spot, because I think the bachelor's degree, especially if it's bachelor in science, but it could be bachelor of arts too, it's the minimal effective dose to get almost any job. Because yeah, you could work at sites without any bachelor's degree, but if you have like more than a bachelor's degree and you try to get like an in-house CRA role, which is sometimes considered like an entry level for CRO, they won't they're less likely to consider you if you have a more advanced degree than that. But bachelor is the sweet spot because you could get lucky. You have a bachelor's of science, you just graduated college, you don't really have a lot of gaps on your resume, and you go apply at Quintiles or IQVIA, whatever they call themselves now, for in-house CRA, you have a chance to get that job, if you do well in the interview, because it's considered somewhat of an entry level role, and they know that, okay, you don't have a master's, so you probably there's not like you're not gonna leave us really quickly. So that bachelor is that sweet spot. I think that's like kind of all you need. Um, and then if you want, my rule for higher education is like similar to yours, Monica. If you work in this industry for a few years, you're gonna figure out where you'd like to see yourself be, and you can see what degrees are gonna help you get there, but you may not need any at that point.
Yeah, I say you might not need any.
Yeah.
So
Well,
yeah,
it's the difference
I
between need
mean,
and want, because some people will still
yeah.
want it, and that's
Well, if you want it, it's different
yeah.
story. If it's for your personal reason, all you need really to enter in the industry and a solid foundation all you need is probably the CRC Academy or the CRA Academy. That's it.
Yeah.
And besides, if it's the CRA, you're gonna need the bachelor's. If it's the CRC, you don't need a specific background.
Right.
It's helpful when you have a bachelor's, yes.
And even then, there's always exceptions. But this is not meant to bash
Hmm.
advanced degrees. Actually, I think this industry, life sciences, interestingly enough, is one of the last few places where degrees actually matter later in your career. So if you're a bachelor's degree and you've worked at the site level, you've worked at the CRO level, but you've only worked for like maybe 7 years. Let's say you've been a coordinator for 3 and a CRA for 4. Okay. And now you're going up against someone who's a PhD who's worked at a uh, site for 3 years and as a CRA for 4. All things being equal, which they never are, but like let's say same personality, all that stuff, you're more likely to be a clinical trial manager with that PhD. It doesn't mean you can't without that PhD, but it's slightly in your favor because when CROs approach sponsors about getting a project, they're usually asked, send us the CV of your clinical trial manager. And that helps to have comma PhD after your name because sponsors still care about that stuff.
Yep.
That's the only time. But see, that ROI comes later in your career, not in the beginning. I just said you did 3 years at a site and 4 years as a CRA, just like the person who didn't have a PhD. And that person who didn't have the PhD can still be a clinical trial manager too. It's just you have a slightly easier chance of getting there quicker. That person without the PhD might have to work like 5 more years before they can do that. And they
That's
might
We
have to
had,
get like certified CRA or something like
yeah,
that.
we had in the CRC Academy many PhDs in United States. I mean that they finish here, and we had a lot, and we have a lot of doctors trained overseas
Yeah. Chris
and
was gonna
people
say
with
something.
masters.
I was just going to say but you said it was only slightly advantageous for the PhD. I was going to disagree until you said you might have to work 5 years longer with a bachelor's degree as a CRA. That's more than slightly advantageous, and that I agree with. I think it is highly advantageous to have a PhD or an MD or whatever the case may be, um, in acquiring those positions that you are referring to.
So maybe when you start being a CRA, like in year 2 of being a CRA, then if you're thinking of going on that direction, that's when you're going to decide if you want to actually do this, take the PhD or study or taking that responsibility rather than before, because maybe
Like
you choose
Judy,
the wrong one.
like
Yeah.
LICR co-founder Judy, she's doing this right now. I don't think it's her PhD, but she's getting her master's after 17 years of being in the industry, and she's currently still
Hmm.
in the industry as a site owner, but she just wanted that master's degree.
And I don't recall what she said, but she's been out of school for a few years, I believe.
Yeah, it's like something like public health or something like similar to that. So for her, it's probably to boost her site reputation. And I mean, who knows? There's a lot of reasons for it. And
Mhm.
but the ROI comes later. And the problem is a lot of people who get it first before they get the experience, they want it now.
Probably they choose the wrong PhD or the wrong master. So I guess it's better. From my perspective, it's better to wait a little bit so that way you can choose the right master's or the right PhD that is gonna really truly help you to advance quicker than just doing it before and trying to advance jumping, which is, I mean, it's not gonna happen. Everybody has to go through the same
Yeah.
process. Hmm.
But so this industry is interesting because it matters and it doesn't matter at the same time. Like we always say, me and you, Monica, and even Chris, we always say degrees don't matter, but it doesn't matter, but it can be advantageous to have degrees because it could shorten your timelines a bit. But interestingly enough, it's not going to shorten your timelines at the beginning. And I think that's a good summary of all of this. But anyways, anything
Yes.
else you guys want to add?
Yeah, if you're interested in being a coordinator, talk to Monica about the CRC
I was
Academy.
gonna say the same.
And if you're interested in CRA
Yeah.
Academy, talk to me or Chris, but you'll
Yeah,
end up talking to Casey.
exactly.
Sometimes I call. Sometimes me and Chris call. We'll
Yep.
get on the phone. So, all right, guys. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Thank you, Chris and Monica, for coming on to unpack this. I think we need like an actual conversation to unpack the nuances of all this because people are confused, and I don't blame them. You know, they've been taught, they've been lied to their whole lives. Like, hey, once you get this PhD, you go out there and get any job. And then they come into research and they're like, wow, no, I can't get any job. It's not true. Asterisk is later, right? But they don't tell you that at the beginning when you get that loan because that's not as sexy.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, with obviously this sounds like advertisement, but with the CRC Academy or with the CRA Academy is much easier because it's practical.
That's
And
right.
It's
obviously
also
you're not getting into that huge loan. Is
much cheaper.
yeah,
There you go.
a lot more, and it can help you to advance much faster.
Well, thank you guys. I
So
think Chris's dog agrees. And like, subscribe, comment, share. Yeah, he had too many student loans. The dog did. Like, subscribe, comment, share. Catch y'all later. Thank you, Monica and Chris. Bye bye.